everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to today's video where I will be discussing my top favorite books that I have read so far this year. I have 17 books to talk about, and quite a few of them I have never discussed on my channel because I have not done a wrap-up since April. So yeah, I'm very excited to talk about these books for the first time on here. I think I am going to talk about these books in chronological order. So a lot of these books I have already talked about a lot on my channel. First up, we have volumes 5, 6, and 7 of Sweat and Soap. You guys should know at this point that this is one of my favorite series ever, regardless of format or genre. But if you don't know, this is a slice of life romance manga series about our main couple. We have Asako and Notori. Now, their relationship is a little bit odd. It definitely starts off weird. They both work for this soap company. Notori is like a creative in the company, so he comes up with scents and things like that, and Asako works in the financial department. And so one day they meet, they run into each other, and Notori is just obsessed with the way that Asako smells, her natural scent. Meanwhile, she is very self-conscious of the way that she smells because she sweats a lot. So hence the title. But yeah, so their relationship is like a little bit odd, I will give you that. However, it is the sweetest and swooniest romance that like I've ever read, and the clear communication between these two alone is absolutely everything and reason enough for you to pick this up. But I just love reading about this couple, and I never get tired of it, even though we've gotten to a point in the series where they're just kind of doing mundane things together, but I'm still so invested in every little thing that they do. Next up, I want to mention Gym Bunny by Brianna Hale. This is technically book 2 in the Dom Fitness novella series, but you could definitely read this as a standalone. This centers around this gym called Dom Fitness, and all the trainers are doms or dominants, and the people that go to train there are submissive, though nothing sexual is going on at this gym, but you do have the dominant submissive dynamic. And so this one is just such an interesting plot because we have Livia, she's plus sized, and she was in a very toxic, abusive, dominant submissive relationship, and now she's just terrified of doms in general. And so when she comes across this gym and there's this guy who's our hero standing out front handing out flyers, she's just like absolutely terrified of him. But he is just enamored by her, and so they eventually start a relationship. And I just adore Trey because he's like the epitome of a Cinedom. He's a total cinnamon roll hero. He's so sweet. Yet he's also like a softer dom in the bedroom. And yeah, their romance was just so sweet, so swoony, but sexy at the same time. Next up is a book that is not a romance. This is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, or St. John Mandel. I don't know how to pronounce the author's name, sorry. But this is such an intriguing book because it was written in 2014, yet it centers around this devastating flu pandemic that within just a few weeks, civilization as we know it came to an end. And so now it's 20 years after this pandemic, and we have one of our major characters who is Kirsten, and she moves between the settlements of the altered world with a small troupe of actors and musicians. And this story is just so intriguing, so interesting. There's definitely some mystery, thriller elements throughout. I just thought it was beautifully written, and it's very surreal reading this after us having gone through the COVID pandemic, but I just think that it explores humanity in a very interesting and beautiful way, and I was just so mesmerized while reading this book. Even if you think you don't want to read a book that centers around a pandemic, I would still highly recommend this because, like I said, it's really about so much more than just the pandemic. And yeah, this was just absolutely phenomenal. I definitely want to check out more works by this author. Next up, we have what I have decided is my favorite book that I've read so far this year, which was definitely a hard decision to come to because I truly adore all of the books that I'm talking about in this video. But The Duke Gets Even by Joanna Shupe is just on another level. This is the fourth and final book in her Fifth Avenue Rebels series. We were finally getting Nellie and the Duke of Lockwood's romance, and when I tell you that this served absolutely everything that I could have wanted from this romance and from this story, I am not exaggerating. I think Joanna Shupe is in her writing prime at the moment. Everything about this book and about these characters was just right on the money, spot on. I cried at times. This book is also incredibly sexy. As we know, Joanna Shupe is amazing at writing sex scenes. And I just adore this. What else can I say? I have ranted and raved about this book a lot on my channel. I already want to reread the rest of the books in this series so that I can reread this book, because that's how amazing it was. While I'm here, let's talk about the 3 Sophie Lark books that I have read this year and have absolutely adored. The first one can definitely be read as a standalone. This is Ivan, which this is Sloane and Ivan's romance. This takes place in St. Petersburg in Russia. Sloane is an assassin. She is tasked to kill Ivan. She infiltrates his compound, and right as she's about to kill him, he wakes up and they fight, and he ends up taking her captive, and he uses some very interesting methods to interrogate her. I will just say that. And this is truly one of the most iconic couples I've ever read about. I truly adore Ivan and Sloane equally. They are just the ultimate power couple, and I love them. They're absolutely amazing. This book was also super duper fast paced. I could not put it down. I just think this is the perfect place to start if you're looking to start reading Sophie Lark's books but you don't want to commit to a series yet. Would definitely start out with this one. But speaking of series by Sophie Lark, I have to mention both The Heir and The Bully. So these are books 1 and 3 of her Kingmaker Chronicles series, and this is a spin-off of her Brutal Birthright series. These are mafia romances, but this series centers around this mafia college, basically. This first book is Leo and Anna's romance, but we also get Dean's POV, and Dean is the hero of The Bully book 3. So it's his villain origin story in this book, and oh my god, this world is just so intriguing and so interesting, and this is a really great friends to lovers romance, and having Dean's POV in this just really put this book to the next level, in my opinion, because this is not my favorite romance by Sophie Lark, but it's still just a fantastic book. And then, like I said, book 3, Dean is the hero in this, and then we have Kat, his love interest, who is introduced in The Rebel, which is book 2 of the series. And this book is perfection. It truly is. I adore the redemption arc that she writes for Dean's character. He's very much a Draco Malfoy-like character. So if you're here for that vibe, read the series. And you definitely need to read the entirety of this series in order. Like, you definitely cannot just jump into this book, unfortunately, but I will say it is well worth the wait. The audiobook is fantastic, by the way, and the relationship between Dean and Kat is everything. The progression of their relationship, this book was just so addicting. I remember just being so mesmerized, and I could not put this book down. Next, I want to talk about the 2 books that I've read by Claire Kent. She is quickly becoming one of my top favorite romance authors, and I love her books so much that I'm savoring them. I don't want to read too many of them at once, because then I will run out of new books to read by her. But the first one I want to mention is Hold. This is book 1 in her like dystopian space romance series. These are more like novellas, because the audiobooks are like 4 to 5 hours, so they're really not long at all. But this one is so interesting and terrifying, yet it's an incredible romance. So this takes place on a prison planet. We have our heroine Rihanna. She's an archaeologist. She gets caught by the coalition, which is like the government, when she's doing a dig somewhere she's not supposed to. So she gets put on this prison planet, and the guard that's dropping her off on the planet is like, hey, if you want to survive, you need to just find like the biggest dude here and persuade him to protect you. And so she locks eyes with Kane, our hero, who's just kind of on his own on this prison planet. You know, a lot of other people have like formed like gangs and things like that, but he's just by himself in his own cell, and this prison is just absolutely terrifying because there's a bunch of these criminals all in one space with like little to no cells. And so the fact that he has his own cell, she's intrigued by that, and so they lock eyes, and she wholeheartedly agrees to give herself over to him for his protection. So this is, like I said, it's, you know, intriguing, definitely morally gray, but so beautiful. I absolutely adore how Kane and Rihanna fall for each other. And I do remember this book making me tear up and cry, as all of Claire Kent's books do. And the other book that I've read by Claire Kent so far this year is Princess. This is book 2 in her Kindled series, which is her post-apocalyptic romance series. So this series is completely different from the series that Hold is a part of. But basically at the beginning of book 1, which is Haven, though there is Last Light, which is technically a prequel to the series, I guess. But something catastrophic happens to Earth, and so civilization as we know it is no more. And so this book centers around Olivia and Grant. So they end up living in this like massive bunker with a ton of other rich people, but Grant actually works for Olivia's father, and so it's kind of like a bodyguard type situation. He definitely protects Olivia, especially because when this book starts, I think she's like 17, 18, but as the book goes along, I think this book encompasses, you know, quite a few years. I would say like 5 years-ish, something like that. So this is an age gap romance, and typical with Claire Kent, we've got the grumpy stoic hero. And I just absolutely adored this. It definitely has a different vibe from Haven, which is book 1 of the series. Next up, I have to talk about Heartless by Elsie Silver, book 2 in her Chestnut Spring series. I love this series as a whole, but nothing is going to top Cade and Willa's story for me. I truly feel that their romance is on another level. I just adore, you know, we have Daddy Cade, he's the ultimate daddy, grumpy hero, and then we have Willa, who is just so funny, so iconic. So many scenes that I still vividly remember from this book are because of how amazing and hilarious Willa is. If you don't know, this is a nanny romance, so Cade is a single father, and Willa ends up being his nanny, and of course they end up falling for each other, and it's just small town romance perfection. What can I say? Next up, we have Devlin Spring by Lisa Kleypas. This is book 3 in her Ravenel series, and something that I just adore about this series as a whole is just how cozy and comfy it makes me feel, and just so happy. I truly adore all of these characters. I have loved almost every book that I've read in the series so far. Book 4, Hello Stranger, was just okay for me, but books 1 through 3 are truly something special. And so I read Devlin Spring earlier this year, and this one is Pandora and Gabriel's romance. One of the many amazing things about this book is that Gabriel is the son of Evie and Sebastian, who are the couple from Devil in Winter. And I just have to say, I'm not the biggest fan of Sebastian in Devil in Winter, but Daddy Sebastian in this book is everything. Like, seeing Evie and Sebastian still being in love with each other and just being the best parents ever, it's truly like the best icing on the cake that is this book. But also Gabriel and Pandora's romance is just so adorable and wholesome and sweet, and just so much fun. I really love the direction that the plot went in this one. I cannot recommend this highly enough. As you can tell, this book just makes me so happy. I can't stop smiling while talking about it. The Ravenels is truly just such a special series. Next up, I have to mention Resting Witch Face by Juliet Cross. This is the 5th and second to last book in her Stay a Spell series. This is my favorite paranormal romance series ever. It takes place in New Orleans, and if you don't know, I'm from New Orleans. I live here, and this book is so special because we finally got Jules and Ruben's second chance romance. This was a relationship that had been built up, I'm pretty sure, since book 1. So we had all been dying for this book, and I truly think that Juliet served everything that she needed to with this story and with this couple. Like, this just had the perfect amount of angst, and it's so sexy. Juliet Cross's books, whoo, they are hot. And this was just everything. I absolutely loved it. I cannot rave enough about this series as a whole. Next up, I have to mention Eleanor and Gray by Brittany Cherry. This is a second chance nanny romance about our main characters, Eleanor and Gray. And this centers how they met and fell in love in high school. They end up separating for like 12 years or something. I feel like this is very common when it comes to Brittany Cherry's books, that she makes the characters fall for each other and then they spend quite a bit of time apart. And so when they come back into each other's lives, it's because Eleanor is just looking for work, and so she becomes the nanny to this very rich man, not knowing when she shows up for work on her first day that her employer is Gray, and he now has 2 kids, and he is now a widower. And oh my god, this book was just everything. I love nanny romances. Truly, that is one of my top favorite tropes, and I thought it was just so well done in this. I just loved seeing Eleanor, you know, worm her way back into Gray's heart, and seeing her fall for his kids as well, and just like the amazing relationships that she has with all of them. And I cried so much while reading this. This book is just truly on another level. Cannot recommend it highly enough. Next up, we have Unveiled by Courtney Milan. This book definitely took me by surprise this year. Lisa and I just randomly picked this for our Blushing Blue Stocking Society book club one month. We definitely didn't have any expectations going into it, but I'm so glad that we read this book for the book club, because then that gave us the perfect opportunity to just gush about it for an hour on the live show. But this one's a very interesting plot. So we have Ash and Margaret. Margaret is the daughter of a duke who's like on death's door. And then Ash is, well, he's a commoner, but he reveals to society that this duke's children are all bastards, essentially. So this duke now has no one else to inherit the dukedom except for him. So Ash now is the heir. And so, like I said, Margaret is this duke's daughter, and so now she's kind of like hell-bent on revenge against Ash, because she feels like he truly has ruined their lives now, because they're not going to inherit anything from their father now. And so she kind of goes undercover working as a maid in her own house, essentially, while Ash is there and, you know, kind of learning all about the dukedom and everything. She's there kind of spying on him, and this romance is just so well written. There's so many layers to it. It's a very complex story and a very complex relationship between Ash and Margaret. There's also vibes of this that remind me of Akamath, A Court of Mist and Fury, just because of how Ash truly just wants to set Margaret free, and he doesn't want her to be ruled by society. That definitely gives me vibes of how Reese is with Feyre. Next up, we have like my second favorite historical that I've read this year. This is Ladyruthless by Scarlett Scott. So I've read quite a few of Scarlett Scott's books in the past. I read the entirety of her League of Dukes series. And so Ava from Ava's Romance Books had recently read this, and so she was just gushing about it to me. And the plot sounded so intriguing, and so I just kind of read this on a whim, and I'm obsessed. First of all, Scarlett Scott is incredible at writing hate to love romances. I truly feel like that is her trope, and she just needs to be writing those kind of romances the rest of her life. But this one is so interesting. It's got like kind of a Lady Whistledown vibe to it, because we have Callie and Sin, also known as the Lord of Sinclair. He's an earl. Callie's brother, who was a duke, recently died under mysterious circumstances. He was having an affair with Sin's wife. His wife also died under mysterious circumstances. So Callie truly believes that Sin killed both her brother and Sin's wife. So she decides to write these memoirs from Sin's point of view, and it just paints him as like the worst person ever. In these memoirs, he confesses to killing the Duke and his own wife, and you know, it's like all these other crazy things that he's done. And so basically no one in society is going to touch Sin with a 10-foot pole, but Sin desperately needs to marry because he is in severe debt. So at the very beginning of this book, he kidnaps Callie and blackmails her into marrying him because he knows that she's got a healthy dowry. And so things go on from there. I am so obsessed with this book. Like I said, she's so amazing at writing hate to love romances. I loved that this started out as Captor Captive. I've read another Captor Captive romance by her before. It was called Heartless Duke, and I highly recommend that one as well. And I just love how their relationship started out as like this physical thing that they couldn't deny, but then as the book goes along, they do truly fall for each other, and there's so much angst, and it's just so well done. I do think that this would be a really good place to start with Scarlett Scott. By the way, if you have Audible Plus, you can listen to this audiobook for free, so I would definitely recommend that. All right, we have 2 books left to talk about. The first one is Headcase by Onley James. This is book 4 in our Necessaries Evil series. If you don't know, this is a very interesting, dark, found family serial killer romance series. But this one in particular centers around Asa, who is one in a set of twins. And the whole series centers around this doctor, Thomas Mulvaney, and how he adopted these 7 boys. And all 7 of these boys are basically psychopaths. And so he raised them as his own to become vigilante serial killers. So they kill people who have done heinous things but have fallen through the cracks of the justice system for one reason or another. And so this one centers around Asa, who, like I said, he has a twin, and then Zane, who wants to be like a true crime reporter. And so they end up hooking up one night, and they very quickly start falling for each other. And this has a very interesting side plot. There's like this really weird game that's going around different like college campuses that seems to be resulting in students taking their own lives. And so Asa, Zane, and Asa's whole family, they start investigating this, and this was just phenomenal. This series is very formulaic, I will say, but it's just so well done and so addicting, very well paced. You're on the edge of your seat the whole time because it's got those mystery thriller elements to it, and the romances are just so addicting to read about as well. So yeah, I could not help but give this one 5 stars as well. And I definitely can't wait to read the rest of the books of this series. I think I only have like 3 books left. And then last but not least, we have Heatwave by Karina Halley. This is a book that I picked up on a whim because Christy from Christy Reads a Lot was raving and raving about this book recently. I remember her mentioning it on her Instagram stories, and I am always intrigued when Christy gives a book 5 stars because it doesn't happen all that often. And I've read some books by Karina Halley that I have truly loved. Most books that I've read by her, I've given 5 stars. So I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. Let's just pick this up. The plot of this is so interesting. So angsty, so forbidden. Oh my god. So we have Veronica and Logan at the beginning of the book. The 2 of them meet at this like social function, and they just immediately have this connection. But Logan meets Veronica's older sister, I believe her name was Juliet, and so he ends up falling for her instead of Veronica. So Logan and Juliet get married, they move to Hawaii, and they open up this like bed and breakfast hotel situation there. Juliet ends up passing away in a tragic accident. And so now it's present day. And so I think it's been like a couple of years since her passing, since Juliet's passing. And so Veronica has now taken a job to work as a chef at this hotel that Logan now owns by himself. And so upon being reunited, they just cannot deny this like tension and chemistry between the two of them. And this definitely has like a little bit of like a hate to love vibe to it, because Veronica definitely blames Logan for things that happened in Logan and Juliet's relationship. But then the truth comes out and we realize that things weren't quite what they seemed. And this book is just so phenomenal. First of all, there's like a found family aspect. I truly love all the side characters that we meet. It's basically all the people that also work at this hotel that end up becoming close friends with Veronica. And I love the setting. This takes place in Hawaii, and you really feel like you're there based on the way that Karina Halley describes everything. Like, now I desperately want to take a vacation to Hawaii. And this angsty, forbidden romance between Veronica and Logan was just everything. And it truly is forbidden, because Logan was married to Veronica's sister, and they know that Veronica's family is never going to understand their relationship, you know, and it's going to be a scandal no matter what, right? And so it's just, there's a lot getting in the way of the two of them being together, and I could not put this book down. I was, once again, I feel like I'm saying this a lot in this video, but I was so mesmerized and just so invested in their relationship. I'm pretty sure there were moments where I teared up and might have even cried during this book. So that's when I know a book is truly special to me, is when I'm that invested that I get that emotional. So that's gonna be it for my top 17 favorite books that I've read so far this year. I would love it if you guys would leave a comment down below if you want to tell me about some of your top favorite books that you've read this year. I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe. And I thank you so much in advance if you do. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!